another wet Wednesday, you know. Man, them chat. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you now, I ain't talking about them at all. Trust me.
Stop talk, man. Let me give you an introduction, brother.
Cool, brother.
Tonight we got Phili in the house, Luton hip hop legend, member of the legendary Phili Cypher and Filling the Dots. Currently doing some good work in the community, mentoring young people. Welcome to MDC, Si.
Respect, bro. Respect, people. And thank you for having me as well.
Nah, man, we've been trying to get you for a while, bruv. You know.
Yeah, that's still.
For a while.
I've been watching what's going on still and wanting to kind of get involved as well.
Yes, man. Yeah, man.
I do this now as well. So
good to have you, bro. Good to have you.
Respect.
So, Si, you want to take it from the start, man?
I kind of just introduced myself. Still, you kind of covered it. Yeah, I'm artist, rapper, musician from Luton, born and bred. I've been doing music for the last 20, 25 years. I was involved with my initial group for Life Cypher, consisting of me, Life MC from March Farm and DJ Napper from March Farm also. We kind of got critically acclaimed for the work we did with the Gorillas back in the day and appearing on Brit Awards and a few different things like that as well. But we also had a critically acclaimed album back in 2000 as well. And then since that, I've gone on to being another group, Phili and Dots, where we had a kind of critically acclaimed album as well and did pretty well with that. And also my own solo career. Been doing music, as I say, for like the last 25, 30 odd years. I'm also, for the last 5 years, also been working. Sorry, my iPad keeps slipping like crazy as well. So if I keep moving it, I apologize. For the last 5 years, I've been doing work in the community as a youth worker, working with youths involved in serious youth violence, chaotic lifestyles, county lines, sexual child exploitation, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of like where my life's at right now. So but hopefully that kind of wraps it up in a.
Yeah. So you want to come tell us a little bit about growing up in Luton?
Well, growing up in Luton,
childhood days, family, background, that kind of thing.
You know what? For me, I kind of always look at my life and growing up in Luton as I had a privileged life growing up in Luton as a youth. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, as growing up as a black child in Luton, I had the same adversities that most black youths had in their lives. Do you know what I mean? But for me, I was lucky. I had a mum that was working and a dad that was working. Do you know what I mean? I lived in, at the time, a kind of safe environment, which was Sunderland Park. Do you know what I mean? So people could kind of consider that as a safe kind of place. Do you know what I mean? And because my mum and dad were working as well, I mean, I even said in one of my songs on my album, I never wanted for nothing. My dad always bought me every BMX I wanted. All the things I needed, I had. Do you know what I mean? And as I got older, I realised how privileged I was. Do you know what I mean? But I could recognise the desperation that other people around me were going through simply from one of the telling things that went on in my life was where I grew up in Sunderland Park, and the high school I was meant to go to was meant to be Leland. And then because I didn't get sent to Leland, my parents sent me to Lee Manor, which was basically me having to walk from Sunderland Park to Marsh Farm to go to school. Do you know what I mean? At that point, Lee Manor was regarded as one of the best schools in the area. Do you know what I mean? So with that being in mind, I mean, they didn't have a crystal ball and didn't know that Marsh Farm was going to turn into Marsh Farm.
I do remember you was at youth house. You was kind of all right.
Yeah, but the thing is, I will never forget, cussing my mum and dad and being like, "Why are you sending me to school in Marsh Farm? I've got to walk a half-an-hour journey to school now where I could be going around the corner here." Do you know what I mean? But for me, it was one of the best things they ever did for me because it broadened my horizons in a way that I would have never been able to broaden my horizons in any other way at that integral time in my life where, I mean, I thought I was leaving all my friends, I mean, but I ended up making a whole bunch of other friends and then making a whole bunch of other friends outside of Marsh Farm.
Bro.
Huh?
Ain't nothing wrong with Leland's, bro.
No, bro, listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Leland. Yeah, what I'm saying is...
Were you back in the day when we used to have fights, Leland's against the Manor?
So you broke up there, say again?
We used
used to fights on Sunderland Park Field.
Nah, I want nothing to do with that madness there. By them time there, I was fully ingrained in
It's my time. That
my own. This is the thing for me, yeah. The people I was hanging around with in Sunderland Park at that time, yeah. If I would have gone to Leland's, I would have continued doing the same kind of things as they were doing. Yeah, they were thieving cars, burgling houses, and carrying on with a whole heap of madness. Yeah, whereas me going to Lee Manor basically broadened my horizons for me to then end up going on to then meeting people from Lucy Farm. Do you know what I mean? Even aside from that, do you know what I mean? Because of me going to Lee Manor, I ended up meeting up with people from Lucy Farm and then coming back and then started dancing at the Rundy in Sunderland Park.
I remember all of that. I remember all that. Rundy.
So it went full circle back to Sunderland Park anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's only because I was known in Sunderland Park.
Club, man.
Huh?
Eddie to St. John's Friday.
Sorry, come again. You keep breaking up.
John's Disco on Friday.
Yeah, I was there all the time.
And Roddy.
Yeah, listen, I was at the Rundy regular. Yeah,
Yeah.
Literally, for me, it was either the Rundy or Queensway Hall. Yeah, in Dunstable. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And me, Side Chance, Cole Walsh. Yeah, we had our dance group there set. We called the Ring Lords. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I mean, I got into hip hop from. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So,
is that for Hawker Ring?
You was tight with Jaron, innit?
Is that for Hawker Ring? Ring Lords.
Well, me, Jaron, Side Chance, and Cole Walsh. Yeah, I knew there was four of us. I don't know why I cut him out, but yeah. So I mean, I kind of got into the whole hip hop thing then, from back then. Do you know what I mean? So, but for me, the only reason that happened was because of my mum sending me to Lee Manor as opposed to sending me to Leland's and then getting involved with all the other madness that I could have been getting involved with certain people I was hanging around with there who were thieving cars, whatever. Like, I mean, one of them's kind of like he's completely turned his life around now. The other one died in prison.
JP saying I remember that too.
Yeah, I see that too.
JP's feast, but yeah, he's saying he remember that too.
Yeah, you don't know you remember the Rundy, innit?
Yeah, come on, you can't forget Rundy, man. Rundy was all right. Rundy was all right.
So how did you sort of start getting involved in hip hop? You didn't really go down like a lot of guys went down the sound system route, and a lot of guys our age went down sound system route. You did.
Was completely different. It was always like kind of like into hip hop and into rapping and whatever not, but never had the confidence to rap myself or anything like that. Live had just come out of jail. He was fresh out of jail and then went on Kiss FM and did episode feature on Kiss FM with Caveman. Don't know if you remember the rapper Caveman. And if you had a man, do you know what I mean? And then he completely shone in that, do you know what I mean? And I remember sitting outside, I think one of them nightclubs in Mill Street in Luton, and we were playing the tape inside the car, do you know what I mean? And but at that time, I was kind of like one of them private bedroom rappers there who would sit there rewriting other people's raps and then rapping it again, kind of like just to get it in my head, just because I wanted to be able to rap it. Do you know what I mean? I'd always kind of like been doing that before, but now I've started to write it. And then it's just a little while before that, after that meeting with Live, it kind of inspired me to just like, you know what, let me just try and write something myself. And then I wrote, but the first rap I wrote was about pork, basically about not eating pork and basically what it can do to you and basically how it affects your body or whatever, like, you know what I mean? So I'm not dissing anybody for eating pork or anything like that. Now that's up to you. Your diet is your business. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to judge you or anything like that. But after that now I kind of like conjured up the courage to approach Live MC and then be like, listen to this rap that I did, you know what I mean? And I bust it to him in the club, you know what I mean? And then from there, you know what I mean, he was like, yeah, you know what? I like that still, you know what I mean? We should come and record that, you know what I mean? And then me, him and that part, we ended up linking up, recording a few songs from there. And then from there, it kind of developed into us just recording a few songs. And then at that time, Tim Westwood was doing a competition on his show that he used to do on a Friday night, the Tim Westwood show. And we decided to enter it with a tune called The Shining. So we ended that competition. And then from that, like these were the times there where we used to listen, everybody used to do, like kind of crowd around the radio every Friday night or Saturday night when the hip hop show was on, because that was the only time you could be able to listen to hip hop. This was before it hit like the internet or any kind of social media for you to be able to listen to what you wanted. Do you know what I mean? Spotify was a dream back then. Do you know what I mean? So we ended the song into it and then was surprised that our song ended up getting put into the competition of it. Do you know what I mean? And then we ended up coming second in that competition. And the song that beat us, like, got played a few times, but our song ended up getting played quite regularly on Too Westwood show after that. So then because of that, after that, we ended up going to London to appear on our first kind of stage show kind of thing, where we'd ever got the first, I don't know how many times live had rapped in front of anybody before that, but this was the first time I'd ever rapped live in front of anybody. And I remember my leg was shaking like crazy on stage, and I was just, and there were groups there like Mud Fam and Task Force and all these people there who were highly regarded at that time. Do you know what I mean? This was the first time I'd ever even gone on stage to rap, let alone rap in front of a crowd. Do you know what I mean? But they took us in well. Do you know what I mean? And then from there, do you know what I mean, for us being a group from Luton, at that time, hip hop was so London orientated. Do you know what I mean? If you weren't from London, you weren't getting heard. No one was paying any attention to you at all. So for us to be a group from Luton that were getting paid attention to at that time was kind of like a recognised thing. Do you know what I mean? So then after that, we ended up getting recognised by a record label called Jazz Fudge in London. We ended up signing to them and releasing our first album, Millennium Metaphors, with Jazz Fudge. And there was a lot of anticipation around the album at that time before it was coming out. So before it actually came out, we got approached by EMI to do with a project that somebody from EMI, we didn't get given any information or anything like that, that there was a project coming out from EMI, and they've heard some of our music and they were interested in us getting involved with it. It turned out that was the Gorillaz, and it was Damon Albarn, and their man basically had heard our music and wanted us to basically get involved and be involved in the projects of the Gorillaz. So we went and had this meeting with them. Everything was going kind of swimmingly. I mean, they explained the whole concept of the Gorillaz and what that was going to be about. And then we ended up recording, I think it was like 2 or 3 songs with the Gorillaz, did a couple adverts as well. And the deal was basically throughout this period went on for probably about 6 months to 8 months, where we'd be going back and forth from Luton to London, like it being chauffeured back and forth from Luton to London, either working in the studio, working with them, or going to see music solicitors and working out this deal and whatever not. And at this time, the deal was actually incorporating our current record label, Jazz Fudge, who actually wanted part of the deal to be some sort of basically production part of the deal, which is kind of like was known at the time as well, where a lot of organizations would be like, okay, yeah, you want our artist, so we want to be part of that whole deal. Do you know what I mean? So that was kind of like the done deal with a lot of organizations at that time. Do you know what I mean? So time went on, and then Damon ended up having to go to America to get the album mixed down by Danny Automator, who is good friends with Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who most people know, the person who done the original song of the Gorillaz, Clint Eastwood, which was the original version was the version that we released, but then we ended up getting replaced by the version that Del the Funky Homo Sapien released because of EMI thinking it was more commercial and it would do better than our version. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to get into an argument about that. Do you know what I mean? But it turned out when Gorillaz needed to go on tour, they found out really late in the tour that Del the Funky Homo Sapien was agoraphobic and doesn't go anywhere. So they ended up having to then come back to us to ask us to then come and appear on the Brit Awards, do their tour in Japan, do their tour throughout Europe. We didn't end up doing the tour in America due to other issues that I'm not going to go into right now, but I'm glad we didn't, because we'd probably still be in jail over it now.
I mean, I remember that situation. I remember the Brit Awards and that, and everybody in Luton was like, yeah, live cyphering, that they're on TV, they're going Brit Awards. And the tune was good. You guys performed really well, but it was just crazy that when the tune came out, it was, and another artist that I'm bridging, good artist, same way still. But we just thought you'd be on the tune that came out. Do you know what I mean?
This is the thing. You don't know how, like for probably about a good year. Do you know what I mean? We've come and recorded these songs, and we've been told, right, okay, yeah, this is the song that's coming out. Just keep your mouth shut, because we need to be signing non-disclosure agreements and everything, just to make sure that things were kept cut up a set, so that we can make sure we were getting the deal. Do you know what I mean? And then as time's going on, I'm seeing on MTV, I'm seeing adverts for the Gorillaz coming out, and I'm there getting excited, like, yeah, this is coming out now. Do you know what I mean? And then But while I'm hearing the adverts, it's just the instrumental. Do you know what I mean? You've got to remember, I've heard the instrumental for time because I wrote the lyrics to it. Do you know what I mean? And then another couple months later now, I'm hearing the vocals on it and it's not me.
Yeah.
It's some other
That's
thing.
it.
I'm like, I go, why go on here now? Do you know what I mean? So then we're contacting the label now. Do you know what I mean? Our label then contacting EMI. And there's this holy mess of like, we decided this was the version that was more viable for us to release. And I mean, this is the first time I've ever actually spoken about this live on anything. Do you know what I mean? So cancelled or Kanye over
Got a
this.
world exclusive, yeah.
Yeah, I had to ask you though, because I just remember everybody was talking about it. Yeah. Be on the TV, yeah, watch the TV, Brit Awards, blah, blah, blah. So everyone was watching it. So obviously when the tune come out now, we're expecting to hear it, you get me?
Yeah, listen, and don't get me wrong, I mean, them kind of things there, I mean, that's like a lottery ticket. You know what I mean? Them time there, we literally just started out in music. Do you know what I mean? Our album was about to come out. Do you know what I mean? And it was highly anticipated at that time there. Do you know what I mean? But we were thinking, you know what? Regardless of whatever our album does, we're set. We're good. Do you know what I mean? I mean, EMI had Damon Albarn and EMI had us like, chauffeuring us from Luton in limos to London to have meetings with like solicitors and whatever, not basically and music lawyers about the deal. Do you know what I mean? And talking about you lot set now. I mean, you've got nothing to worry about. I mean, you're going to be doing this, doing that. Do you know what I mean? So in our minds, we're cool. Do you know what I mean? So then when you're in your mind, you're thinking, right, you know what? Everything's cool right with that. Do you know what I mean? We're still doing our things for Life Cypher and carrying on. Do you know what I mean? When something like that ends up then getting taken away from you, you got to kind of think of the mental health aspects that's going to happen from that. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of at that age there, I didn't even recognize how much it probably affected me mentally. Do you know what I mean? It affected me and it affected the family of my ex-partner and my family that I was with at that time. Do you know what I mean? Because all of us were there thinking, you know what? Everything's carpet set by now. Everything's cool. And then all of a sudden, everything kind of gets taken away. Do you know what I mean? So them kind of things there, you know what I mean? It affected families, it affected the group, it affected everything moving forward from that. Do you know what I mean? But we still kind of maintained as a group, did what we did as a group as for Life Cypher, touring and doing what we were doing, because we did a lot of shit as for Life Cypher. And
you guys represented, man.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of half traveled the world with what we were doing for Life Cypher. Do you know what I mean? And that was still under that pressure of what we'd kind of already been through. Do you know what I mean? I remember we went to Russia. We had a show in Russia, and they actually booked us thinking that we were the Gorillas. And then when we got there, we had to explain, no, we're not the Gorillas, we're for Life Cypher.
Them ones.
You're lucky they never brought
Did
you up.
you have to learn the whole of Clint Eastwood to be able to perform your bit?
The thing, we performed our version of Clint Eastwood, so we didn't need to learn it. But we learned what we'd written. Do you know what I mean? The original version of Clint Eastwood is actually on YouTube as the original British performance. That is the original performance. We didn't need to learn it. Do you know what I mean? All it is the version everybody else knows is the remix.
Yeah.
We don't actually know the remix.
But did you have to learn all their lyrics?
No, we just did our version.
Just did your bit. Cool.
Yeah. There's not a chance. There's not a chance I'm going to be rapping somebody else's lyrics on something else.
Not now. Not now.
That's crazy.
Desmond asked, who was your role model? Who had the greatest influence on your life choices?
I'd probably say my dad. My dad, I mean, regardless of how me and my dad didn't used to get on or anything like that, the respect I have for my dad kind of dictated, my mum and my dad kind of dictated the life choices that I would have made throughout my life. You know what I mean? So some of the choices that I could have made that could have put me in jail or anything like that. You know what I mean? I've decided to go against because of the respect I've had for my mum and my dad. You know what I mean? I'll never forget the first time I got arrested. I must have been about 9 or something like that. And I used to go shopping with my mum in town. My mum used to leave me to go to Alfred's and tell him.
Lost you.
Sorry, we lost you there a minute. 1 minute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that. Technical hitch. Go ahead.
My mum used to leave me to go to Alfred's to get shit with my bike and go to Taylor McKenna and get toys and just look at toys and shit. Do you know what I mean? So we wouldn't even get stuff on my bike. I'd go there with no money in my pocket. I was just window shopping. This particular Friday now, I decided to steal a marble and steal a punch repair kit from Alfred's. These times they want no mobile phone, no nothing, you know what I mean? And then my mum's waiting for me in the car park like she would do, and I'm not there, you know what I mean? And then she ended up having to go home. I've been arrested. I was sitting in the police station now, just thinking to myself, I don't even care about these police now. When my mum comes and finds me in this cell, I'm in trouble. Literally, the licks I got in the cell, the police stopped my mum when she got there. The police stopped my mum when she got there. You know what I mean? Like, from that, I was like, you know what? It's not about me getting arrested for these type of things there or getting into that. You know what I mean? So I've always kind of been smart enough to, or not even smart enough, lucky enough to keep myself out of them predicaments there where this kept me out of trouble. You know what I mean? So my main role models, I would say, are my mum and my dad. You know what I mean? And my family. I've got good brothers and good brother and two good sisters there that will always guide me in the right. I mean, I'm the youngest of four. Do you know what I mean?
So you've been on stage with KRS-One. Now that man's an intelligent dude and a dangerous rapper. How was that? How did that feel?
Gosh, I wish you didn't answer that question. Right, at the time of me doing that, that was one of the most inspiring shows that we'd ever done. Do you know what I mean? For me to be on stage with, I mean, not even with him, I was on stage before him. Do you know what I mean? But to be able to support someone like that is, I mean, I can't front. That's a milestone in my career, if you want to call it that. Do you know what I mean? Of what I've done. Do you know what I mean? And at the time, do you know what I mean, me, Life and Napper were gassed off that. Do you know what I mean? I had the poster up on the walls in my yard at the time. Do you know what I mean? Just as a kind of mark of achievement. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I find KRS-One sometimes to be, as the older I've got, there's certain opinions that he's got that have kind of, for want of a better way, pissed me off. Yeah, and the major one that troubles me is his view on the whole Africa Bambaataa thing. Yeah, and I don't know if you're aware of that. Yeah. I'll just explain.
No, I'm not fully, but Mark is gone.
So do you want to just fill us in? So basically, they're saying that African Bambaataa is a known, would they say?
The child thing. Yeah, go on.
So African Bambaataa is the founder of the original Zulu Nation, very important, significant hip hop organization from the 70s.
I agree.
Foundation. He was a ground.
Great stuff. And then what was about 10 years ago, things started to come out saying that he was actually a prolific, basically. So what's your take on that then, Sai? Is
for me, it's this: whether Bambaataa is a convicted is either convicted sex offender or not, that he's been accused of it. For me, KRS-One's stance on it, where because of him being one of the founders of hip hop or anything like that, it makes him unaccountable for anything like that.
Right.
And that we can't. I mean, for me, I don't care if you invented the light bulb. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't care if whatever you invented air. Yeah. If you're a child molester, yeah. I don't even like using the word cancelled, but I'm not going to hold you in no high regard, and I'm going to hold you accountable for the things that you've done that are wrong.
True.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Do you know what I mean? So, and the thing is, it's not like I'm not going to Jimmy Savile him off and go on like I don't want to hear none of KRS-One's music. KRS-One is still a great artist, and I still regard him for the artist that he is. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I can't agree with a lot of the things that he says, and that for me it is a massive one. That it's just like I'd rather you just keep your mouth quiet, didn't say nothing. I mean, sometimes saying nothing is better than saying anything at all.
Yeah, difference of opinion.
That's a quick question. I don't really want to, because obviously this interview is really about you and your career, but just a quick one. Was there more people come out regarding African Bambaataa, or is it just that main guy? I can't remember his name, who's been accusing him. Did many more other people come out? You know, like the Jimmy Savile thing.
Yeah, there were quite a few that's come out, and I mean, they've just kind of like been silent since then. You know what I mean? So I haven't been keeping up with it, obviously, in the later time because there's too much that's been going on since then anyway. You know what I mean? But it's one of them things there that for me, for the whole Zulu Nation and everything like that, to kind of like discount themselves from him and everything like that, there's got to be more information and stuff that they know that we're never going to know for them to want to do something like that. Do you know what I mean? And it's not just going to be just because it's on social media.
You did a tune called Scrolling with Benjamin Zephaniah. The legend Benjamin Zephaniah.
Yeah, you was in the video too. But
yeah, I saw it, yeah.
But that for me was a moment, you know what I mean? So I was kind of like, I was in the process of doing my album and I'd already had quite a few features on there that I was proud of having, like Arthur Ra and Sizzler as well. Do you know what I mean? And the last feature I ended up getting was Benjamin's F&I. Do you know what I mean? So for me to have got that, for me, it was just like, I don't care if all the other features on there want to cancel right now. As long as I've got him on there, it's carpet. You know what I mean? So it's calm.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, he got back to me. I mean, and we'd already known that he was a fan of For Life Cypher and a fan of our music. You know what I mean? So I was privileged that he responded back to me anyway. Do you know what I mean? But I just took a chance and messaged him anyway to even hope that he'd respond. Do you know what I mean? And then when he responded, he was like, "Yeah, I don't mind jumping on the tune, but as long as you can kind of edit out some of the swearing and some of the words that you're doing on it." Do you know what I mean? And for me, that wasn't even a thing for me to even think about. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, "Yep, which words are they you want me to change?" And I'll get the change right.
No issue.
I'd say that you're not an issue at all. Do you know what I mean? So to have someone like that on tune for me is like, I mean, that's one of my bucket lists there for me to say, you know what, I've got a tune with Benjamin, Zephaniah, and
cool.
I mean,
What's Sizzler like?
Sizzler, do you know what? I couldn't tell you really much what Sizzler like. That was a complete online transaction that was going on there.
Oh, right, okay.
I mean,
so you never met him.
that was another one that I couldn't believe getting the response back saying, yeah, I'll get on it. Do you know what I mean? And he was one of them ones there who wanted the payment through Western Union as well. So I'll never forget, like, in the morning before work, I was like, do I pay this Western Union thing here now, or do it? Because I was just thinking I'm going to get robbed. Do you know what I mean? And there's no way to do it. So then I must have sent the money like about 8 o'clock in the morning before work, and then lunchtime at work, get this message through with a little sample of what was going on of the tune. Do you know what I mean? And then it was an actual tune. I was like, right, let me hear this tune and see if it's actually Sizzler now. I'll never forget being in the car park at work and hearing it through my headphones. I'm like, oh my God, it's actually Sizzler. This is bad. Do you know what I mean? And being happy that I've done that there, do you know what I mean? And that was another feature that I never thought I would be able to get.
Best.
Cool.
Abdul, you got a question?
1 second. Can you man chat for 1 second? I just need my front door's ringing. I just need to go and answer it.
All right, no worries, brother.
Just a sec.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're gonna also ask Phili about his involvement in supporting Jeremy Corbyn, because it seems he's an avid Labour supporter.
Labour Party. Right.
Yeah, man, Labour right, brother. So obviously when he comes back, we're gonna get down to that as well. Still, but
if you guys got any questions, let's think of any questions.
Yeah, can you ask about Leon Briggs?
Yes,
right.
yes, good one.
Good one, yes.
Forgot about that. Yeah, because he was one of the main highlights.
No, he lives right in our area.
Yeah,
because he lived on the same road as me. He used to come into my garage all the time, and then we all heard that name. I cried when I heard.
Yeah, it was dreadful.
Leon Briggs was a guy who got restrained by the police, Des, and ended up dying.
Yeah. I remember now.
Nice guy, Leon. You know.
Nice guy, yeah.
Yeah, we went to the demos. I went to the demos down the police station.
At the station, yeah.
We put the plaque up. We put the plaque up. Actually, we got a plaque
I was there.
Then they took it down a few days later. Yeah.
And they took it down, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Apparently, you can't do things like that on the Queen's property.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't give a damn.
Well, no. There's a lot of people out there as well.
Yeah.
That night, there was quite a lot. Yeah.
Bad people.
Yes, family. We have a question. We've got a question about Liam Briggs coming up, but Abdul had his hand up, so I'll let Abdul go ahead with this question. Abdul, you there?
Yes. I've just come in, so I've missed a few conversations or whatever.
What's up, Abdul?
Yeah, I just wanted to know. So I've never actually. I mean, are you a local artist? Are you, or are you just?
Yeah, I'm from Luton, born and bred. Yeah,
Oh,
I've been doing music in Luton since probably the last 20 years now. So.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. So are you on a label or anything like that? Are you producing your own stuff as well?
Yeah. I used to be on a label. We used to be signed to two labels, Jazz Fudge and True Thoughts, and we were also loosely associated with EMI when we worked with the Gorillas. But
Yeah.
since then, I've basically decided to start my own label, Phoenix Recordings, and just basically do it independently and put my music out myself and kind of like stop some of the ways that I was paying people for other stuff that I didn't need to be paying them for.
Right.
So-
What about I'm going to say right, what about royalties? You get any royalties as well, stuff like that?
Yeah,
Dealing with
the thing is, the game's changed so much. There was so much that I wish that I knew when I first started doing music that I know now, as far as like signing up with the PRS and signing up with different other organizations, publishing agencies, to be able to do that stuff yourself, as opposed to like the time that we got in the game, it was really, really early in the whole internet game. So it was before the whole social media, Spotify, and the whole online thing. Do you know what I mean? So if we would have been aware of those kind of things coming out, we would have been more prepared for how we needed to kind of represent ourselves online, and also as far as business is concerned. Do you know what I mean? If we'd have known 10 years ago now that signing a deal with a record label, do you know what I mean, unless a record label is looking to chuck shitloads of money at you, do you know what I mean, and then give you the promotion that they need for you to be able to like, get yourself in that position. Do you know what I mean, all you're going to end up doing is being in debt, which is what we found ourselves in a much lower scale in comparison to some of these other artists that are being signed by the labels right now. Do you know what I mean? And most artists these days don't want to get signed. It's better for you to be able to basically set up your own thing and then get that organic reach online yourself and build that up yourself.
Does sorry to jump inside, but what you're talking about there is a case of where they give you the money up front, isn't it?
Yeah, when they give you that money up front, I mean, that's it. I mean, most people don't realize that's a loan.
Yeah,
Do you know
that's
what I mean? I will never forget when we first got signed, and then I think for our first advance, I think we got like something like 10 grand between the three of us. Do you know what I mean? We were laughing, thinking, yep, we're rich. Do you know what I mean? Everything's cool. Do you know what I mean? Album had probably been out about a year and a half. Do you know what I mean? And then the next thing now, we're getting letters from the label with bills, basically telling us for every single thing that they've done. Do you know what I mean? We were getting charged for every letter they'd sent, every email they'd sent. Do you know what I mean? Every magazine they got us in, we've been charged for that. Do you know what I mean? So in hindsight now, do you know what I mean, back then you couldn't do all those things yourself. Do you know what I mean? But now you can do all that yourself online. And as long as you're smart enough online with how you promote yourself, you can do that, and other people will promote you if you've got that organic reach. Do you know what I mean? There's other people like, you know what I mean, I put a status up the other day for people not to judge artists on what kind of following or how many likes they've got or anything like that, because people can pay for that now. Do you know what I mean? So nothing in this world is real. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, you can have that organic reach that people are going to latch onto your music and want to be part of your story, and do you know what I mean, and then go on from that. Do you know what I mean? And then be long-term fans and listen to your music and listen to your releases from then. Do you know what I mean? So
that's the scrolling song, yeah? Scrolling.
Yeah, well, for me, scrolling was literally about how I'd kind of like just seen how social media had just infiltrated society these days. You know what I mean? And I mean, it's a massive double-edged sword. I mean, it's one of those things where you can. I mean, social media's at one time ruined my life. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, social media it feeds me as well. Do you know what I mean? And enables me to be able to do what I'm doing with my music and do what I'm doing with as far as content that I put out and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So
you're quite good at the digital content as well. You're quite out there with that.
At the same time, regardless of how good I am with that, it only takes one little beef for your social media presence to end up causing you an issue and end up wanting you to never not be seen on it. I mean, I'll never forget when the group that I was in for Live Cypher, we split in 2012 over some bullshit. Do you know what I mean? And because of the fans that we had, do you know what I mean, there was an interest in the split. Do you know what I mean? And it got to a point where I was getting so much abuse online from fans of the other side of whatever. We both had our own sides of it, do you know what I mean? But it got to the point where I ended up going into a kind of depression thing because of me thinking what other people were thinking about me online. Do you know what I mean? It took me a while for me to get to that stage in my mind of not caring about what those people are thinking and just being me and doing me and being me type of thing. Do you know what I mean? But it's such a double-edged sword where that social media can build you up and break you down in one time.
But to be an artist, you kind of have to have that thick skin where you don't really watch what people say about you. You just got to get on with the mission and get on. You know
real talk. Even from before social media. I mean, I remember from back in the day when For Life first started, and then before social media, for us to even see what people were talking about, we'd have to go down to the newsagent, and like when Mixed magazine was coming out, or any music magazines were coming out monthly, we'd have to sit there and then read through the reviews to see what people were saying about us. Do you know what I mean? And we'd be there searching for us. Do you know what I mean? And then if the magazine had a feature of us, then we'd go and buy the magazine. Do you know what I mean? You ain't got to do that. I mean, you just got to go search online and you find that. Do you know what I mean? And then it got to a point where I could sit there and read 100 reviews about myself, do you know what I mean, or for Life Cypher that were bigging us up, do you know what I mean, and then get me gassed up for the day. And I can read one review that says something negative about us, do you know what I mean, and then or me, and then from that, it's going to mess up my whole day. Do you know what I mean? And then I had to get to that way of thinking of don't watch what other people's opinion. I mean, it's a different world right now. Do you know what I mean? Because people have got opinions in Papua New Guinea. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what their opinion is. It doesn't matter. I mean, that shouldn't affect me. Yeah, that shouldn't affect me. Do you know what I mean? But we're in a society right now where people's opinions direct what is going to happen with some people's futures.
Yeah. Seafood perhaps asking about when you disappeared and came back. Your involvement in the Liam Briggs.
Yeah, can you tell me, can you comment on the power of your tune that you made for Liam Briggs and how it affected you?
For me, that the whole Liam Briggs thing, the song for me, literally, I did that kind of like as a
tribute.
Not even as a tribute. That was a therapy thing for me as well, because I was close with Leon. Do you know what I mean? Me and him, and I mean, I actually cried when I wrote that song. Do you know what I mean? And
I was just telling them that I cried when I heard the, you know what I mean?
There's only one other song that I cried to when I've written, and that's the song about my dad. Do you know what I mean? And for me, the reason I wrote it was literally just because of the unjust way that it happened, and for me, it was the only way that I could kind of like express and kind of like, I mean, I wasn't even actually really doing it for any kind of liking or following or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? Or, do you know what I mean? For me, the only way, the thing I wanted to do was to be able to raise awareness of the situation of what happened, and possibly through the sales, raise money for the family. If, do you know what I mean? Because I know he's got kids there that are left without a dad after that. Do you know what I mean? So, but for me, it was just something that I felt had to be done to represent a friend for one. Do you know what I mean? And one thing that kind of pissed me off with the whole situation of that is that, because we were doing a lot of marches for Leon at that time and going down there monthly and then weekly and then monthly, and the numbers kind of dwindled all the time going through that. Do you know what I mean? And for me, I wouldn't have only been going there if Leon was a friend of mine. If Leon didn't need to be a friend of mine for me to go to that march and represent to that, because that could have been any of us.
That's right.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I don't consider myself no celebrity or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? But I know that if that happened to me, there'd be more people there who basically would be, do you know what I mean, disgusted at the situation of what happened to me. Yeah, do you know what I mean? That should have been, that same disgust should have been there for Leon as well. Yeah, that's how I felt about it. Do you know what I mean? So if I needed for me to do a song just to kind of raise awareness, a little bit of awareness about it, do you know what I mean? Just for people to know about it after that, for me, it was a minor for me to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I had love for Leon. He was a good dude.
Every time I did a show, I had 2 shows a week. You know, when I was on Tropical, I was on 2 shows a week. So I was playing it all the time. Disgusting.
Can you, as a man who is knows how to work the social media, tell me about the Jeremy Corbyn situation, brother? The Labour right.
Listen, Jeremy Corbyn's a done. Yeah. I don't care what anybody wants to say about me after saying that about Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, Jeremy Corbyn is the Prime Minister that the UK doesn't deserve.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I mean, there's too many greedy people, and there's too many people that think they're middle class to working class, and they ain't. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And soon they're gonna realise that. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I'll never forget. Do you know what I mean? That before COVID and everything like that, you know, Jeremy Corbyn talking about free Wi-Fi and sorting out training systems and everything like that. Do you know what I mean? People were talking about like he was mad. Yeah, do you know what I mean? As soon as COVID hit, they were talking about, we need free Wi-Fi.
He was chatting like Gaddafi before, and everyone's like, "Nah, man, that's ridiculous." Chatting about. Are you agree with Kanye then?
Who are you talking about? Are you talking to me now?
Yeah.
Why
Man,
did you bring Kanye up in
man,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
do you,
Round the
man?
man up, boy.
Anti-Semitism, business.
Oh, come on.
I don't want to talk about
We're not
them.
discussing that.
I don't want to talk about them, whoever they are.
All right. Can you quickly tell us about well, we've still got time, we've got at least another 10, 15 minutes or whatever. Tell us about the movement then from Philly and Dots.
Do you know what? That happened by complete accident. You know, obviously those scissor hands, my barber, the bedroom barber there.
Yeah, man.
He randomly
Big up
said,
Spencer.
Yeah, man.
yeah,
Big up
big up
Spencer.
Spencer. He randomly asked me if I wanted to go to a jump off night at Skylar on a Monday night. And this was literally just after a few months after the life had broken up. And I ended up going there. And then Dots was having a battle. He was battling that night. And I noticed him. And I'm not a dude who notices other rappers that often. I mean, I'm not bigging myself up like that. But when you're a rapper, when you go out, you end up getting a lot of rappers just rapping in your ear and just trying to rap in your ear and trying to get heard type of thing. I mean, but Dots is one of these guys you kind of like stood out from these other kids. Do you know what I mean? So it just so happened we were on the train coming back to Luton, and because Dots lives in Bedford, he was on the same train. I mean, and then we ended up chatting on the train and then talking about basically music or whatever. Like he ended up freestyling, I ended up freestyling, and because I said my name, he was like, "Oh, what? You're Phili?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, and then we just basically kicked off from there. Do you know what I mean? And because of his talent, I mean, we ended up doing a project from there as well. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't want to deflect as well. I did want to actually talk about the youth work I'm doing as well.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We was gonna
Yeah,
bring that. We was gonna get to that, brother. Come on.
How long we got left?
Yeah, we've got at least 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes,
cool,
up to you.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
To stay on longer if you want, bro.
Yeah, you can stay on long if you want.
All right, cool. I've got a few minutes anyway. We'll go on, Khan.
All right, cool.
So are you still doing any music now with Phil in the Dots, or is there going to be a Philly Life Cypher reunion, or is there?
You know the
anything-
sorry, Mark. You know the mad thing? I just realised it says Philly in the Dots.
Yeah.
I just clocked that. Man's moving slow today. Man's moving slow. All right, go on.
It's Philly and Dots and For Life Cypher.
Yeah.
We've got a For Life Cypher album coming out. Hopefully in the next. This album's meant to be coming out for the last how long, but we've finally had some talks about it, and it's going to be coming out in the not so distant future. Do you know what I mean? So
that's
keep
good.
You're putting it out yourself, yeah?
we're going to put it out ourselves. We hope to put it out on some vinyls as well, on some limited edition vinyls as well. So I mean, I've got a few features coming out here and there with Philly and Dots and a few other artists here and there as well. You can find me. I'm going to be on a film soundtrack coming out as well. There's a film coming out. I forgot the name of the film now. Once Upon a Riot. It's going to be coming out at some point next year. I'm going to be doing the end soundtrack on that. I've actually got a quick feature in the film as well.
Yeah, right. You're supposed to be traveling for that, bro.
I was meant to be traveling for that, but that's a whole different scenario.
So why aren't you traveling for that, then, brother?
Because I'm not Jack. I got invited to go to LA to do.
I would say respect for your daughter getting into acting. That's awesome, man.
No, respect for that, man. She's proper loving it as well. I mean, so we're trying
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
right. Oh, man, so.
Yeah,
I'll link to it Pinewood if you want to get screen test and all that kind of thing.
Well, I don't know if she's at that stage yet, but
that's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? You always think upward, innit?
Yeah, you got to put it forward. Yeah, you don't know. I hear that. Look ahead.
So, how's it going to work for you now then? Because obviously, you never take the joke, yeah. And what happens with like sort of tours and shows? You know, for example, this album might just, go off the chain. What are you going to do?
I'm not even thinking that forward like that.
I mean, you cross that bridge when you get to it, yeah?
I've never been one of them rappers that like, this year's going to be the year, do you know what I mean? Or this album's going to be the album, do you know what I mean? I'll just release music as it releases and I'll cross the bridge when it comes to it, do you know what I mean? For me, the only country that's restricting travel for COVID right now is America, do you know what I mean? And if I have to sacrifice going to America to not have the travel, so be it, do you know what I mean? It's not one of my things. I mean, so it's hopefully at some point it changes. And so I mean, I'm not even going to get into the whole situation of what I've been thinking of doing to get out. I don't want to be feeling that I'm at the airport there like some drug mule, and the next thing you're going to see me on banged up abroad and shit. You know?
Banged up abroad, you know. And just standing there with his hand at the bars, you know. Alright.
Are
Okay.
you on SoundCloud, by the way? Are you on SoundCloud?
Right. Yeah. Just put Phili in SoundCloud or for Life Cypher. There's loads of stuff on there.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about your
SIPHILI? For Life Cypher is PHILIFE and Cypher CYPHER.
all right, you guys are still cool though, yeah? So,
Yeah, we're good, man.
That's
It's all
good,
love, man.
that's
That all whatever's happened in the past is in the past now. And
yeah,
we're all too old now to be
sure.
getting on with any madness or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's about moving forward and getting things moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. Go on and tell us about your
Hold
youth
on a minute.
mentoring.
Did you say Phili?
Yeah, SI space
Yeah.
PHILI.
Okay, brilliant.
You got that, Abdul?
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us about your youth mentoring? Si?
Yeah,
That's really interesting to know.
I kind of got into youth work probably like the last 5 years, literally by accident. I'd put up a status on Facebook a few years ago. Do you remember when the Finsbury Park accident happened around the time when the Grenfell fire happened?
Yeah.
And at that time, I was actually watching the news on Facebook as the ITN news as opposed to watching it on TV. So I could see the comments that were coming through. Do you know what I mean? And there were just a whole heap of racist comments being like just thrown up all over the place. They're talking like, yeah, we're getting them back now and pay back and whatever not. Do you know what I mean? And then that kind of like got on my nerves. Do you know what I mean? From that. So then I ended up commenting on there on that same post. If I see Tommy Robinson or no, I didn't even comment on a post, I put it on my page. I said, if I see Tommy Robinson or Abu Hamza, sorry, if I see Tommy Robinson today, I'm going to kick him in his throat. Yeah, that's what I said on my page. So the whole day had passed, I mean, and there was nothing, I didn't hear anything about it, you know what I mean? And then it probably got to like about 6, 7 o'clock. And then my Facebook page just started beeping like mad. Do you know what I mean? I was like, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? And then obviously someone from Tommy Robinson's camp had seen this post now and decided to share it with Tommy Robinson. Do you know what I mean? So I've got all these racists battering my page, just giving me all this racist abuse from left, right, and centre, from, you know what I mean, from everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
That was a crazy time on Facebook, bro. I tell you, that was crazy.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, man.
Right.
So many people were getting banned left, right, and centre.
Left, right, and centre. It was a madness. Yeah. So then this was going on for time now. Do you know what I mean? And then even though my baby mother there just basically begging me to take this post down because of the abuse I was getting. I was like, no, I'm not taking it down because I want people to see how racist this place is. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I was like, don't worry, kind of like 11, 12 o'clock, I mean, you've got to go to sleep and it'll all calm down, you know what I mean? So then I'd fallen asleep by then. Woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning and then see on my phone I was getting messages from Canada, Chicago, New York, all these racists, basically just from worldwide racists who had just woken up and seen this thing that I said about Tom Robinson, and they were just literally gulling my page, talking about I raped my daughter and all sorts of things. I pimped my daughter and everything. I mean, just literally talking some shit. So like, I still left it. I mean, and then woke up in the morning, my Facebook page was blocked because of all these racists basically reporting me for everything I'd said on Facebook weeks before that. I mean, and then my Twitter got blocked as well because of it as well. I mean, it's literally just a complete shutdown because of this. I mean, and then after a while, my Facebook page ended up getting opened up again, probably about 3 or 4 weeks later. But in that time, I got approached by a friend who works for Prevent, who are basically an organisation who work with young people who have been referred for basically being suspected of being radicalised for either Islamist radicalisation or right-wing radicalisation. Yeah, there's a lot of hate for Prevent because of it being deemed as it being predominantly about Islamist radicalisation, and basically it being a racist agenda where you're basically singling out these young Muslim kids who have maybe slipped up saying a word that this teacher didn't understand, and because these teachers have been, or teachers, or not even teachers, there's any professionals who have been, had like half an hour's Prevent training, basically then are scared about anything to do with Prevent or radicalisation or grooming or anything like that. And then as soon as they see anything, they're reporting it. I mean, and then most of the time, these teachers are white, yeah, who are then seeing an Asian student maybe say something that doesn't sound right to them, do you know what I mean? And then they're getting referred, which makes it like a racist issue, do you know what I mean? Whereas for me, when I got employed by this organisation, I was being employed because of all these other little kids in schools who wanted to be the next Tony Robinson. Do you know what I mean? So this then developed into the whole grooming line and grooming sector of how kids are getting groomed online, whether that be to do with radicalisation or within gang grooming, county lines, or sexual exploitation, anything like that. So basically all part and parcel of the same thing. So I then got into working with youths who were involved in county lines and serious youth violence and basically chaotic lifestyles throughout the whole thing, basically in the same gambit. And just started working for different organisations. So at the moment I'm working in Stevenage and North Hearts, working with youths basically involved in gang violence and serious youth violence and county lines and other madness like that, basically.
It's good work still, brother.
No, it's good. It's rewarding work, not as in financially, but it's rewarding work as in doing it for the youth that I'm doing it for. It was still.
So with the youth that you see, what do you think is needed as a community to help these youths that are coming up with all this postcode war and gang violence and grooming and county lines?
For me, it's unity. Yeah, I mean, you, Rorica, yeah. I mean, Victor, we all know back in the day we had youth house. Yeah, there's
Starlight
no chance.
61, yeah.
Starlight, all them places there. Yeah, there's no chance that there could have been a postcode war. Yeah, going on between Lucy Farm or Marsh Farm, whatever not. Yeah, without one of our parents or our siblings or someone like that who was known by somebody else within that area to have been like, no, that can't go on. Do you know what I mean? And then at the same time, we had mentors there. Yeah,
Truth.
I mean, there basically to be able to oversee that shit.
Natty wouldn't have allowed it, would you, Nat?
He's not having none of it. He's not having none of that. Me a lion boy, yeah. You think he's playing? You think that he's playing, fam?
Yeah. Natty wouldn't have allowed it. No one wouldn't have allowed it. There's bare man that wouldn't have allowed that shit to get the same shit that's going on right now to carry on. Do you know what I mean? And for me, it's about having more of that. Do you know what I mean? These people are still in the community. All it is that there's no place for us to be able to be placed in the community to be able to help these youths.
Yeah, it's been taken away, isn't it, really?
It's been taken away.
Community centres, do you know what I mean? The youth houses.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, it's a different, and now it's a completely different situation to how it was back in our day. We didn't have social media. We didn't have the kind of drugs and everything that's going on right now. I mean, back in the day, even if we did smoke weed, it was a different kind of weed, and we weren't smoking the amount of weed these youths are smoking or doing what these youths are doing to get weed. Yeah, I mean, we weren't traveling. I mean, if me or you went up to flipping, then we had train tickets and we decided to go up flipping Manchester or flipping Clacton for the flipping week. I mean, your mum or dad weren't having that. I mean, the problem we've got right now is that too many mums and dads are more concerned with what's going on their Facebook or on their social media than what's going on in their kids' social media.
Sure. Or in their kids' life.
Or in the yeah, that's it. I mean, the thing is, it's that the thing is that word life is the word social media. Because that kid's living their life on social media. Yeah. I mean, I work with parents who, I mean, their kids are there having fights and assaulting other people on videos on their phone. I mean, but their parents haven't even seen it. But yet this video is all over online.
Yeah.
You're not even following your kids' social accounts to even see what they're posting.
Yeah. Brother Desmond, you had a question?
Yeah.
I've actually got two questions really, but the first one was just going to ask whether you've had a business manager or you have one.
Yeah, you know what? I've never had a business manager, and that's something that I do wish within the first time of my first part of my career that I did actually have. I mean, for now, I haven't actually got a career within music like that to actually need one. I mean, for me, it's about me just kind of maintaining what I do and doing it. For me, it's a hobby more than anything to do with my music or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and my main business is what I'm going to be doing as far as doing youth work moving forward. Do you know what I mean? Anything I do as far as music is really going to be a hobby thing when it happens for me. Do you know what I mean? If I've got the time to be able to deal with it.
Is your new career in
1 minute, Blacks, 1 minute. 1 minute. Allow Desmond to finish his second question.
On that point, Desmond, that is something that I wish that I'd looked into properly, of having proper management within what we were doing within the group, there've been plenty of people who would like try to be our managers in that time, but they didn't actually have experience as being proper music managers. You know what I mean? And I feel like our careers, all of our careers, would have been a lot better if we had somebody who was properly tuned in to being a manager and managing the situation, as opposed to basically looking at it as a cash cow and then trying to make money out of us because we were a hot group at that time, thinking, right, you know what, I'm winning at this time, so I can make money off of this, rather than thinking that we.
That was call them damager.
The second question I have was I've been in fact I'm a postgraduate qualified youth worker. I'm now retired, and back in the early noughties, I remember when the government decided to close down the youth clubs and the youth services, because they realized they weren't legally obliged to actually run a youth service. They only needed a youth manager. And so, particularly in Bedford, they closed down all the services, and the money was then put into youth offending.
Yeah.
So the government's policy is a direct, in terms of youth crime and the increase in youth crime, is due to government's action. Because if you take away the preventative stuff, I mean, when I was doing youth work, there was no such thing as postcode, because we would keep activities in different areas and invite children from different areas to visit different sort of a youth area. And so they would know each other, and we do things with schools.
And that's the exactly that.
Now, all that money went, and therefore it was only those young people who were engaged in antisocial behavior, they used to call it, and criminal activity.
That's what they still call it.
Yeah, got the attention, right? Yeah. So what then happened is that because there was no resistance, and a lot of the youth worker at the time, they were given jobs with learning and skill counsel and personal advisor. And the whole issue of societal pressure on young people directly, particularly, and families, like for instance now, with the cost of living, so-called crisis, is going to impact most on disadvantaged families and their children. And no one seems to be talking about that. So all the focus seems to be on crime or crime prevention, but the real crime prevention is not being addressed. So I'm just wondering, in your position, you've been sort of a parachute in to play a certain role within it. Now, do you get any support to challenge the structural delivery in terms of, do you question the people who are directing you?
You've hit on them. That's a really important question you've hit on there. Like when I first got into this work, as I say, it was through Prevent. And after that, I was working for a third-party organisation, which was St Giles Trust. I'm not sure if you're aware of them. Mm. So with St Giles Trust, they're not a statutory organisation as far as the government or anything like that. So they've got kind of different rules and different procedures as far as what they do, as far as tackling gang crime, serious youth violence, county lines and different things like that. And for this problem we've got here, it needs a completely different approach to the statutory approach that your councils and other statutory organisations try, like social services, police, probation, and everything, try to approach with this. And they're not getting it. That times have changed so much that it needs to change. Do you know what I mean? Even down to the point of, like, I don't even kind of fast forward through the whole situation here. Like, I mean, the legalisation of cannabis will make such a difference in this whole battle that we're doing with youth crime and everything else as well, but they're just not getting it. Do you know what I mean? It's not even just down to the whole cost of living crisis. Do you know what I mean? The amount of money they could make from taxing cannabis would solve a lot of the problems with the cost of living crisis anyway, but I'm not even going to get into that. That's a whole different show. Yeah. But as far as like with youth crime and serious youth violence, things like that, they're so, because like you say, where the money got taken away from the youth clubs and everything like that, and he got into put into youth probation, whatever not, and youth offending services. And then all youth offending services do is then signpost those youths onto different organisations to do the work that they don't want to do. Yeah, and these other people aren't getting paid what these social workers are getting paid, and haven't got the capacity to work with all these youths that are doing what's going on. And as time's going on, you've got the whole COVID lockdown, which has caused more problems with mental health issues. You've got kids with mental health issues who aren't being diagnosed for like 2 or 3 years. So within that time, they're self-medicating with cannabis and doing whatever else they're doing, and getting involved in how much other different crimes between that time before they've even gone to court. So by the time they've gone to court, they've got 30 or 40 different charges without the actual initial thing being addressed of whatever mental health issues this kid may have, whether this kid may have been getting groomed, whether this kid is being sexually exploited or criminally exploited in any way or whatever, not, do you know what I mean? And then it's basically being left down to different third-party organisations to try and basically pick up the pieces after that. And as time goes on, it's only going to get worse. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like you said about us being parachuted in, I think kind of like people like me have kind of like been skydived in to kind of like hopefully solve a problem that can't be solved without proper funding being put into it and proper thought being put into it as well. Because this is bigger than just money being put into it. There needs to be some different thought and a completely different approach as far as people's thoughts on cannabis, their thoughts on the war on drugs, and even just how we deal with the whole criminal justice system. Do you know what I mean? I'm not one of these people that's going to be like, yeah, you need to be harder on these kids or anything like that. But in my day, if I knew that if I did something and I was going to, for example, when I said about me being caught stealing in town, if I knew that I wasn't going to be getting in trouble for that for another 2 years, I'm probably going to do a whole heap of other different shit between that time. Do you know what I mean? So if I could have suffer the consequences of what I've done in a quicker period of time, and I'm not talking about it being severe or anything like that. Obviously, knife crime and carrying knives like that, there needs to be some readdressing of what's going on with that. Do you know what I mean? But what needs to happen is that these kids who are being caught with knives, they need to be going to court within the next 3 months, not within the next 6 months or a year. Do you know what I mean? And then getting given like a simple criminal order or whatever not, and then just to be able to see somebody for the next 6 months or whatever not, and then to continue doing what it is they're doing. Because by that time they've already robbed somebody else with the same knife.
Do you think they if a young person is caught with a knife, they should be dealt with in terms of children at risk or a child in need kind of thing, safeguarding? It should be more of a safeguarding issue than a criminal issue. Because, for example, when I was growing up, almost every young boy I knew had a knife. We used to have a pen knife. I mean, when I was in the army, I had a pen knife, we call it the housewife. So it was like a cultural thing to have a pen knife, but then things change. And I can see where young people who are marginalized and feel vulnerable may think they might get some kind of protection from carrying a knife. So for me, I see that as more of a safeguarding issue. And so it shouldn't be dealt with as a criminal offense, but as a child at risk of harm.
The way I see it is this, these kids, regardless of even what they've witnessed, but like visually themselves, aside from that, they're witnessing a lot of stuff on videos that they're sitting there and pumping into their heads and not realizing they're giving themselves self-trauma without even realizing it. And the reality of it is these kids are living in a war zone. Like when you see these kids walking around in their hood rich body or stab-proof vest looking things, whatever, not, do you know what I mean? Even though it may not be stab-proof, do you know what I mean? That's an image that they're trying to give out of being this roadman, even though they're not that roadman. Do you know what I mean? A lot of these kids that I'm working with are nothing about that life, but they pretend to be about that life because it's the way of the road and everybody else is doing it. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm not doing it, I'm looked at being as a pussy or I'm vulnerable or it's an issue like that. So with like most of these kids here, I mean, you're going to have kids who are just going to carry a knife just because they think everybody else is carrying a knife. And the reality of it is that most kids aren't actually carrying a knife, but because of the minority of kids who are carrying a knife, it's such a traumatic thing and such a scary thing that other kids will end up carrying a knife just to protect themselves. I mean, I work with kids who are selling drugs or whatever, not, and because they're selling drugs, they have to have a knife on them, because if they haven't got a knife, they're getting robbed. And then they're going to have to back that knife to try and defend themselves, something like that. They might not even use it. I mean, I know of kids that have been hurt just because they've shown this knife, whatever, not, but they're not prepared to use it. But because they've shown this knife, they're showing it to somebody who is prepared to use it, and then you're going to get stabbed. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So, because of how society got now, where people are so, like, young people are so consumed with protecting themselves and their presence on social media. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So they would rather protect their presence on social media and not get called a pussy next day in school, and not get called a pussy next day on the street, whatever, not because of a video that got shown of them backing down to somebody who was doing whatever, not. I would rather be the one there who was seen as doing this, whatever, not, and I'll suffer the consequences later, not even knowing what the consequences are.
It's a shame.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem that we're living with right now. Do you know what I mean? So it's these kids, the way you're saying about these kids who are walking around with knives, whatever, not, I do see them as victims as well, because they're victims of the environment that they're part of.
Society, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's about trying to retrain these kids into thinking. I mean, because I always said to me, if you were carrying any kind of weapon to protect yourself, you'd carry a shield to protect yourself from the knife. But you're not carrying a shield; you're carrying a knife. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, but presently they're being treated as criminal. Wherein what I'm arguing for, they should be treated as it should be treated as a safeguarding issue, because if that, for instance, in Scotland, when they had a knife crime epidemic up there, they treated it as a health issue.
Yeah.
Therefore, they were able to put resources in. Now, if you look what's happening in Britain, at a time when youth offending is actually decreasing, the criminalization rate for Black youth has gone up from 20% to 40%.
Yeah.
So that cannot be just about what young people are doing. And this is what I'm saying. If the approach was that these young people are, as you said rightly, victims, a lot of them are victims of domestic abuse, because if a child observed two adults fighting or arguing to the point of violence, then they have observed a violence which affect them. So they become victim of domestic abuse. If they have got a stable environment, then that is a situation of a child in need. So when it gets to the point where a child carries a knife, they should be dealt with as safeguarding, just as if it was a sexual abuse or whatever. And
But
that way, they would look into the child's background and put help in instead of criminalizing them, which then put them in the revolving door, because once they get in the criminal system, many of them never come out.
That's true. It's a reaction to the environment, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reaction to the environment. Sorry, go ahead.
I fully agree with you with that. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of like throw in a bit of a curveball here. Yeah, there's one young person I'm working with. I can't go into any details or anything like that. But
I mean, I know.
He's being charged. It's a complete, different kind of case, but he's being charged as a sexual offender. Yeah, for sharing pictures of himself and then receiving sexual pictures of himself. Yeah. Yeah. When he was 15 years old, and he's now being charged for that as an adult because he's 19 years old now. But prior to that, he'd been when he was 15 years old, 3 years before that, he was being groomed himself.
Right.
Yeah. But that's how messed up the system is right now. There, where basically you've got it's tricky as hell, and you've got basically different areas and different councils and whatever, not different court systems, basically dealing with how they want to deal with situations in their own way. Do you know what I mean? But as far as like when it comes to knife crime and things like that, it's such an epidemic or pandemic or however you want to put it that they don't know how to deal with. That they're basically just blanketing all these kids as criminals rather than
because it costs money if you're going to deal with them as a safeguarding.
It comes to the money, and so it's all it's about is the money. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So and then with that, I mean, ever since I've got in this work, I mean, I'm not disrespecting social workers or anything like that, but I wish social services were a lot better than they are. And I'm so glad that none of my children have to be involved with the social services, with what I've witnessed of how social services work now.
All right.
I know they want
Oh, thank you for that.
No, thank you for the question, now, man. Just give me something to ponder on still.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
you can always contact me.
Yeah, no, I will do, definitely.
all right. Keep the link, brothers. Seafood Blaps, you got a question? Had your hand up for a while.
Yeah. Sorry. So you know when we was talking before, and we were talking because I've been involved in non-violent science with Lenos and patrolling streets when knife crime was going on, when Mr. Brown was run over. We were mediating with Pastor Denny and stuff like that against the gang violence. We've been doing this for a long time. My dad was talking about knife violence when it was and rockers in
Sorry.
Starlight.
Sorry, Victor, you on dial-up or something? Your connection's really slow.
Well, I said dial-up, you on dial-up. Rude boy. Long time I don't hear that one there. So it's always got talking.
It sounds and things.
Yeah, I saying Blaps has got a bad connection. Had it for the last few weeks, man.
I've got
Not good.
fasting according to Virgin Media, and I've got a new phone. So, I don't know where the problem is. That's why I keep saying it.
I'm finding it hard hearing what you're saying. It's chopping up enough.
Chatting about this. Let me see if the camera turn off works.
Yeah, take the camera off.
Right. See if it's got more bandwidth now. Right. So now, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
So it is your thing then.
All right. So yeah. So is it a matter of the money that's was going into these community clubs and groups has been shifted away because the council don't now have to pay for the library, they have to pay for the community centre anymore because there's no revenue coming back for it. They have to provide it as a ledger thing for the community. And now that money has been going to, say, youth probationary service and stuff like that. Shouldn't they put it through to, like I do an alternative school, alternative learning and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Going into those kind of places, because as I was going to ask you, your new career, you and Spencer love your drones, and you've been taking some wicked pictures with your drone. I love the wide angle ones and stuff like that. As a fellow professional photographer, well, I'm a professional photographer, I don't know if you are, but as a former professional photographer who works with Pinewood in photography, I would say one of the best way to route the children these days is to the leisure industry, because that's where we shine, basically. And I've been saying this for a long time. So in the CDMA, my group, we move the youths to a career in the film industry. And I'm saying just teaching them how to use a drone, which is something that is quite available, and showing them avenues by using their creativity and making their music videos for their tunes that they're making up for the rapping and the music being created on their own laptop and stuff like that. It don't cost much, so we don't really need that much money.
I say this kind of thing to a lot of the other professionals I work with a lot of the time. That like, where you're talking about there is kind of like the tip of the iceberg. It's like, for me, it's like, we live in that age now. Things have changed so much now where a kid's CV isn't as important sometimes as their social presence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know kids that I'm working with who are making more money a month than me because of their social presence and what they're doing on social media, on TikTok or on Snapchat or whatever it is they're doing. Do you know what I mean? So there needs to be a whole kind of rethinking about how we teach these kids and what they need to learn moving forward in this world that we're moving into. Do you know what I mean? So, and using, at the end of the day, the internet isn't going anywhere. Social media isn't going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's about teaching these kids how to use it properly to be able to, I mean, I've seen kids that are, I mean, either having a fight and holding their phone in their left hand and punching with or stabbing with their right hand. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And hoping to get views and likes off of that. Do you know what I mean? And they will do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another kid who's basically cooking or doing some other shit on social media, do you know what I mean, and getting their following from that. But do you know what I mean, not understanding that the kid who's stabbing isn't understanding that that kid's got more longevity with what's going on with their social media presence, and it's more the value of it, do you know what I mean, and the longevity of it, do you know what I mean. And it's about trying to get kids around to that way of thinking, and then also the way of getting schools to actually teach this as well, do you know what I mean, rather than
as an actual lesson.
As a lesson type of thing. I mean, there's so many kids that I work with there who just aren't academic and don't want to go to school and don't want to do your regular maths, English, the languages, I mean, ethics and different lessons there. They've just got no interest in at all. Do you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you just discount these kids. You've got to teach these kids in a different way. Do you know what I mean? So there should be the facilities there to be able to do that. But obviously we're living in a time where we're talking about cost of living crisis and people can't heat their yards, people can't eat, whatever not. But yeah, we're talking about sending a rocket off to the moon in the next couple of years, whatever.
We're sending some rich people around to look at clouds in Leo. And like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
what?
Like you say, it's about the money being allocated to the right people for the right things to be able to happen. Do you know what I mean? But it's only going to be, like people have said before, it's only going to be when rich people's kids can start getting killed. The problem's it's going to be a problem, and then
That's right.
There you go.
When it comes on their doorstep, isn't it?
from their stop, yeah. I mean, but the rich are going to start eating. The poor are going to start eating the rich soon.
Very soon. Very soon. They got their napkin around their neck already.
Right now, trust me. Scraping a knife and fork like that.
Looking plump.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there then.
It's sad though, because I thought after 50 odd years in Britain, I thought the 60s were over. But it's sad to see the crap where children are dying from damp.
Yeah, even down to that.
It's like, it's not looking good for us, man. It's not looking good for us. And this is why I think we need to have some community resistance in terms of supporting our young people, because if we don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Well, who's going to do it if we don't do it?
Just to advocate on their behalf. I mean, I know of a child who was being bullied for 2 years, and eventually, in desperation, he took a knife to school. He was then permanently excluded, and he then became a drugs mule, and then got involved with the police. Now, luckily, he's been able to sort of take a stock and get some support and turn his life around, where he's now at college and also working. But he could have so easily gone down the route of one of his friends who got killed. And the 3 lads that killed him, they're doing some long prison sentences.
And
So
all that
it's sad for me, because I mean, I've come up through the ranks where I used to go to youth club, and then I became a youth worker and so forth. But to see that things haven't moved on, that we're still at the stage where children are dying from a damp residence.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree with Sai. I agree with Sai as well on the social worker problem, as I call it, because I was fostering for a few years, from about 14 to 16.
1 second, people.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, you know, foster, and the main thing I can see, the kids just want to be with their mums, you know, their parents. The kids just want to be with their parents. So if the parents ask for help from the government, and they say, all right, we'll take your kids for you while you get through your health problem, your addiction, whatever. And when they want their kids back, it's a problem.
That's the
You know what
thing.
I'm saying? It's a major thing to get your kids back from them, even if you ask them for help.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So social workers has always been like the hard sell, you know, to get past, to get their kids back. They're so much. It's like it's their money. It's like it's their money they're giving out their back pocket.
I mean, it's a bit of mismanagement, isn't it? Like you said, there's been people are living in the house with black mold and on their walls and roof caving in with water and stuff like that. And it's down to each and every council, isn't it? And they're mismanaging the situation, and things are getting worse. And the worst thing about it, the price of food's going up, energy's going up, things are going to get worse. So what then? What, you just not going to do what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is England.
we used to get doctors out if you call them. Now they're using poles to catch up hospital.
Well, there you
Stop
go.
it collapsing.
Yeah, there you go. You can't even go and see the doctor.
No,
How long it take you to see you? You're in the phone and talk. The man talking about
Oh,
yeah,
you have
diagnosed
to-
over the phone.
They even ask you online. You have to book online.
Yeah,
And when you ask them, do you want a phone call or do you want
Yeah.
to see him in person? If you want to see him in person, you have to make sure you have this, that, and the other involved. I'm like, what? I went in to see my dentist actually. I was like, can I make an appointment? This was December or something. He goes, we've got nothing till March. I was like, what do you mean you got nothing till March? No entry till March for you because it's
I
been a
have
long
to
time
pull.
since you
I have
checked
to
up.
pull the veteran card out because
Does that work?
yeah. Because
Okay.
a lot of these
I have to come borrow your card
councils,
soon.
no, a lot of these
Does it work?
councils.
But yes, it works.
No,
Yeah.
no, listen. A lot of
Good,
these
come borrow
councils,
his card, isn't it?
they've made a deal. They've made a deal to treat veteran as a priority kind of
Same.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whenever
high risk
ring
group.
up, whenever I ring up, I always say, listen, I said, I'm a veteran. And the last time I went to see the doctor, I said, listen, I'm not happy with the way I'm being treated. I'm going to see the British Legion and I'm going to see my MP. And I said, I'm a Queen's medal holder. And I demand to be treated properly. Well, I serve my Queen and country. So I must have priority.
You're queen now, yeah?
I got an appointment within 3 days.
You've had to serve the king too. So
No, we never served Charlie.
He never served the king. He served the
We
queen.
never served Charlie. I mean, I intend to.
I might have to use that next time.
I'm a veteran of which war? The street war thing that was going on.
Yeah, that war there going on Marsh Farm, man.
Yeah, Marsh Farm thing was hot.
All I know is I've got a medal with the Queen's head on it.
All right.
Yeah,
I've got a pound coin.
and I've got my ribbon to go with it. So
All right. Say
I don't
nothing,
have to
brother.
justify that to nobody.
to drill a
All right.
hole in that pound coin, isn't
All
it?
right.
If that works.
It's the ribbon that you're missing, Victor. You need a ribbon to
Yeah,
go
I
with
need
the
to
ribbon.
drill a hole in the pound coin.
And you have
You
to
have
say
to
which
mount it.
champion.
You have to mount it first and then tuck in the ribbon.
Yeah,
Then bend that round, then safety pin
Hold
that.
on a second.
Get
Hold
one
on
of
a
them
second. Let
safety
me
pin
see
and
what
put that on your chest.
I went
Remember.
to a parade once.
I've got one of these things. You see that? It goes in a trolley.
That now go work. That now work.
That's your ID tag.
I
That's
could
your
do the same
blood
thing
group.
with
That's the
the pound coin. I can
Yeah,
do the same thing.
Yeah, that now go work, brother.
No, you have to have
Might
the
work.
Queen's head on it, and now it'll be the King's.
Defeatist, man. He's so defeatist.
All
So I
right.
was talking about social
Hold on,
workers,
guys. Hold
I
on.
agree.
Thanks a lot, guys, for popping in.
Yeah, man.
And give thanks, Si.
Yes,
You know
sir.
what?
Nice
True.
meeting
I'd
you.
like to do this again. I'd like to do this again with Life and Napa as well.
Yeah, man. Don't worry, man. We'll get
We're
the
here
full
every week.
crew.
We're here every week,
Yeah,
so you can log in and have a chat if you want, you know.
I did
Yeah.
recommend that. I did
It'd be nice to
recommend that
chat
to
with you
you.
again, Si.
Huh?
It'd be nice to chat with you again. So
Yeah, it's been nice to chat with you as well, man. We'll link up as well, man.
connect with me on Facebook or anything, or I'll get it
Yeah,
from
man.
Mark.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
give you details and we'll link up, definitely.
Yeah, man.
All right. Give
All
thanks,
right.
Nice
Yeah.
one
brother.
for coming in, man. Nice one.
Thanks a
Bless
lot,
up.
man.
All right.
Right.
Respect.
About
Peace.
damn time.
Yeah, good night, brethren.